Good morning. Scarcity is a fact of life on Earth. We never have enough time or money or capital to do all the things that we want to do. At its core, economics is the study of scarcity. Microeconomics is the study of how households and investors and businesses make decisions in the face of scarcity. Macroeconomics studies how governments and nations do. We have to make choices, and our governments do, and so do all the governments across the world, given limited resources of time and labor and capital. There's a very interesting point here in Modern War Institute magazine. The headlines are coming daily now about how Western arsenals are empty. We cannot make weapons or ammunition nearly fast enough to keep up with the battlefield demands everywhere. And so we have a serious need to rearm. And to do that, we need lots of raw materials, and we don't have them. This article is about the Pentagon's need to build over 1 million artillery shells to replace the ones that are being used up in Ukraine and in the Middle East. A major problem is here. The mineral supply chains for these munitions and platforms face competing demands from non-military applications. Right now, 9% of the world's copper goes to build weapons, and that will grow by double digits over the next few years. Later, they mentioned China is the world's producer of graphite, which is used in the electric vehicles that China builds, which is also needed by our military. China is the largest import source for graphite, but now China is insisting on special licenses. The Department of Defense warns that dependence on foreign sources for rare earth metals, for magnets, for magnesium and cobalt and copper and graphite creates vulnerabilities for the Pentagon and also to our factories. So these are great examples of scarcity at work and how the macroeconomic landscape looks when it comes to restocking our arsenals. And consider the position of BRICS countries and China and Russia. How inclined should we think that they are going to be to sell us magnesium or cobalt or magnets, which may be put on bombs or missiles that'll be launched in their direction? Especially given that there is a market for those materials right now in civilian sectors where China already dominates, in electric vehicles and robots, electronics. China's factories need these metals and materials to build products. And from their point of view, it's probably especially stupid to sell them to companies in NATO countries to build bombs. And from our own perspective, should we not also finally ask if this is our best use for those rare earth materials and technologies? If we use them to build equipment or passenger planes or cars, we can use those materials thousands of times over years, then recycle them. Put them into a bomb or a rocket and send it to Ukraine tomorrow, and it will blow up the day after tomorrow. And it's another call on the world's mines to haul more tons of ore out of the ground to find what we need to build another one. Antimony is an element that's truly in short supply across the world. And ironically, it's a critical ingredient in high explosives and also in fire suppression. The Pentagon needs antimony to build new artillery shells, and civilian industry needs alimony to keep things from blowing up. Here's the mining production chart for antimony, and it looks like dozens of other ones. China and their friends have the supply chain for it. China is half. Tajikistan, next door, right over there, is another quarter. Burma and Russia add up to another 11%. They're friendly border countries too. Bolivia and Turkey are much more friendly with China than with us these days. So this chart is basically saying that if we need more antimony to build artillery shells, we need to find our own. China has put a hard stop on most exports of antimony, and so prices for the metal are screaming higher. It's up 200% so far this year, and they'll go higher next year. A lot of the good intelligence on supply chain shortages, by the way, come from articles like this, which are actually investment circulars. They're solicitations for investment disguised as news pieces. They need investors to open new mines for antimony and the other rare earth metals. It's a critical problem not only for the Pentagon, but in Europe. A readiness assessment last year concluded that the German army only had enough munitions on hand to sustain combat operations for 2 days. The Bundeswehr has been seriously weakened by shortages caused by ammunition shipments to Ukraine. Somehow, someone in Germany decided they would lend all their weapons to Ukraine, and now the German army wouldn't last past the weekend. Germany is essentially demilitarized, says here, and so the EU has ordered the production of 2 million artillery shells before the end of next year. They're investing 500 million euros, which works out to 250 euro each. And now, somehow, someone in Germany thinks they can build an artillery shell for 250 euro. The real price is over $3,000, over 10 times as much. But ignoring that, the EU needs 2 million artillery rounds, the Pentagon needs 1 million more, and the real answer is they're not going to be building many of them at all. The EU don't have the metals or the minerals or the stockpiles either. The EU imports somewhere between 3/4 or all of the metals it uses, and they have no stockpiles. Neither does Canada, and the UK shut down theirs in 1984. It's only now that our experts have realized we have a serious problem, and so we're finding companies and investors to go looking for more. Here is how things look for the United States. The blue dots represent how much of these key materials are imported today in 2023 compared to 1938. The takeaway here is that we used to have active mines for platinum, tungsten, aluminum, nickel, tin, and now we don't really. In the case of antimony, we had a long history of domestic production, but because of environmental and permitting reasons, it's just not possible to get a new mine opened now. So even were new investors able to get over those hurdles, it's then a problem to compete commercially with mines that have already been established in the BRICS countries. So investors in these projects in NATO countries need to wait a long time to get new mines up and running, and then be prepared for them to lose money anyway. And so these investors are right to ask whether this is the best use of their scarce capital. This is Beihai in Guangxi province. Be good.
It was founded on the rock. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors.